The lawyer's words hit Isaac like a freight train. To inherit Harrington Enterprises, Isaac must marry a suitable woman within 12 months and produce an heir, or the controlling shares transfer to charity and the board dissolves the family holdings. His eyes met Dylan's across the crowded room, the man he had loved in secret for 5 years, and the room began to spin. The grand library of the Harrington estate in upstate New York glowed under crystal chandeliers, the scent of aged leather and fresh-cut roses filling the air, but none of it could mask the suffocating weight pressing down on Isaac's chest. At 32, Isaac Harrington had built a reputation as the ruthless yet visionary chairman of one of America's largest tech conglomerates. From the outside, his life looked flawless. Tailored suits from Savile Row, a penthouse overlooking Central Park, and a family name that opened every door in Manhattan. Yet inside, he had always carried the quiet terror of discovery. His father, the late Reginald Harrington, had never hidden his disdain for anything that deviated from tradition. A Harrington man stands tall, provides for his family, and leaves a legacy, he used to say during board meetings and holiday dinners alike. Those words echoed now as the family attorney, Mr. Ellison, adjusted his glasses and continued reading the dense legal paragraphs that dictated Isaac's future. Isaac's mother, Eleanor, sat rigidly in a high-backed velvet chair, her pearls catching the light as she nodded in approval. His younger brother, Marcus, leaned against the marble fireplace with a smug grin, clearly already calculating how the clause might benefit him if Isaac failed. Cousins and distant relatives filled the room, their whispers rising like static. Across from him, Dylan stood quietly near the bookshelves, dressed in a simple charcoal suit that somehow made him look both professional and effortlessly handsome. To everyone else, Dylan was just the trusted executive assistant who had been with Isaac since business school. No one knew about the late-night drives along the Hudson, the whispered promises in the back of town cars, or the way Dylan had become the only person who made Isaac feel truly seen. The clause was ironclad. Reginald had tied the entire empire to it after discovering a vague rumor years ago, though he never confronted Isaac directly. Instead, he had arranged the perfect match. Sophia Langford, daughter of a rival board member whose company would merge seamlessly with Harrington Enterprises. The marriage would secure alliances, stabilize stock prices, and silence any whispers about Isaac's personal life. Failure meant the company would be broken up, thousands of employees out of work, and the family name reduced to a footnote in corporate history. Isaac's hands clenched at his sides as the reality sank in. He had spent years building walls, convincing himself that duty came first, that love could wait. But standing there with Dylan's steady gaze anchoring him, he wondered how much longer he could keep pretending. After the reading ended, the room erupted in polite applause mixed with urgent conversations. Eleanor approached Isaac first, her voice soft but firm. "This is what your father wanted, darling. Sophia is lovely, accomplished, and she understands our world. You'll grow to love her." Isaac forced a smile, nodding as if the words didn't carve into him. Marcus clapped him on the back a little too hard. "Finally, big brother. Time to do the right thing for all of us." The cousins murmured agreements, already planning engagement parties and merger celebrations. Isaac excused himself politely, weaving through the crowd until he reached Dylan near the French doors leading to the terrace. Outside, the cool evening air carried the scent of blooming lilacs. Dylan leaned against the stone railing, his expression calm for anyone watching from inside, but Isaac knew the tension in his jaw. "You okay?" Dylan asked quietly, his voice low enough that only Isaac could hear. Isaac wanted to reach out, to pull him close the way he did in private moments when the city lights blurred below them. Instead, he kept his distance, aware of eyes possibly lingering behind lace curtains. "I don't know how to fix this," Isaac admitted, the words tasting like ash. "Dad built every escape route against me. If I refuse, the company collapses. Thousands of families lose everything." Dylan nodded slowly, his green eyes reflecting the distant glow of the estate lights. And if you go through with it? The question hung between them, heavy with 5 years of stolen weekends in the Hamptons, quiet birthdays celebrated with takeout and laughter, and the promise that one day they wouldn't have to hide. Isaac turned away, staring out at the manicured lawns that stretched toward the Hudson River. He remembered the day they met in a crowded lecture hall at Columbia, Dylan challenging his presentation on ethical leadership with a sharp question that made everyone sit up. From that moment, something had shifted. Late study sessions turned into coffee runs, then weekend hikes where they talked about everything except the future. When Isaac took over the company after his father's first stroke, Dylan joined as his assistant, a cover that allowed them to spend every day together without raising flags. But now the walls were closing in. "I can't lose you," Isaac whispered, the confession slipping out before he could stop it. Dylan's hand brushed his for the briefest second, a touch so light it could have been accidental. "Then don't make me watch you marry someone else." Back inside, the family gathered for drinks, toasting to new beginnings. Sophia arrived fashionably late, elegant in a navy dress that complemented her dark hair. She smiled warmly at Isaac, unaware of the storm raging inside him. "It's good to see you again," she said, her voice cultured and kind. Isaac shook her hand, feeling like a traitor to everyone in the room. Dylan lingered in the background, refilling glasses and handling logistics as always, but Isaac caught the way his shoulders tightened every time Sophia laughed at one of Marcus's jokes. The evening dragged on with discussions of wedding venues and prenups, each word driving the knife deeper. Isaac excused himself early, claiming a headache, and retreated to his childhood bedroom on the second floor. The walls still held faded posters from his Yale days, reminders of a time when freedom felt possible. Dylan knocked softly a few minutes later, slipping inside and closing the door behind him. In the dim light of the bedside lamp, they stood facing each other, the weight of the night pressing down. "We need to talk about this," Dylan said, his tone steady but laced with pain. Isaac sat on the edge of the bed, running a hand through his dark hair. "I spent my whole life preparing to lead this company. Dad drilled it into me that the family name comes first. But tonight I realized I never prepared for losing you." Dylan crossed the room, sitting beside him without touching. "You don't have to lose me. We can fight the clause. There are lawyers, loopholes." Isaac shook his head. "It's airtight." He had years to make sure of that. The silence stretched, filled only by the distant murmur of voices downstairs. For the first time in years, Isaac felt the full force of his hidden life crashing against the expectations that had defined him. He had always told himself that hiding was temporary, that one day the company would be secure enough for him to live openly. But now that day had arrived wrapped in a demand he could not meet without destroying the man he loved. As the clock struck midnight, Isaac stood and paced the room. "If I agree to the marriage, I buy time. The board stays happy, employees keep their jobs, and maybe I can figure out a way out later." Dylan's eyes flashed with hurt. "Buy time? At what cost? Me standing on the sidelines while you build a life with her?" Isaac stopped, turning to face him. "I would never ask you to do that. But walking away means watching everything my father built crumble because of me." Dylan rose, his voice barely above a whisper. "Then maybe it's time to decide what kind of legacy you really want to leave." The words lingered as Dylan slipped out, leaving Isaac alone with the echo of the will's final clause, and the terrifying realization that his next choice would either save his empire or shatter his heart. Downstairs, the family continued celebrating a future Isaac no longer recognized, unaware that the real collapse had already begun inside him. The next morning dawned crisp and clear over the estate, but the light filtering through the heavy drapes did little to ease the knot in Isaac's stomach. He had barely slept, replaying Dylan's words until they blurred into accusations he could not escape. Breakfast in the sunlit dining room felt like a performance, with Eleanor presiding over the table like a queen holding court. Sophia joined them, her presence a polite reminder of the path laid out for him. She chatted easily about her work in philanthropy, her laughter genuine, and Isaac found himself nodding along while his mind wandered back to Dylan, who had left before dawn to handle office matters in the city. Marcus dominated the conversation, outlining plans for the merger with the Langford family business. "This will triple our market share," he said, stabbing a fork into his eggs for emphasis. Dad knew what he was doing with that clause. "It's time you stepped up, Isaac." Eleanor reached over to pat Isaac's hand. "Your father only wanted the best for you. He saw how dedicated you were to the company, but he worried you might forget the personal side." Isaac forced another smile, the coffee bitter on his tongue. He wondered what his mother would say if she knew the truth, if the carefully constructed image of the perfect son would shatter like the crystal glasses they used for toasts. The family had always valued appearances above all, and Isaac had mastered the art of maintaining them. But yesterday's will reading had cracked the facade, and he felt the pieces shifting dangerously. By mid-morning, the lawyers returned with stacks of documents. The clause included timelines, an engagement announcement within 30 days, the wedding by year's end, failure triggered automatic transfer of assets, a safeguard Reginald had insisted upon after a boardroom argument years earlier. Isaac sat in the study reviewing the papers, his pen hovering over the signature line. Dylan texted from the city office. "Board meeting at 3. Need you here." The message was professional, but Isaac read the underlying urgency. He excused himself from the family, claiming urgent calls, and drove the 2 hours back to Manhattan in silence. The highway blurred past, each mile carrying him farther from the estate but no closer to a solution. At the sleek glass tower of Harrington Enterprises, the energy was electric. Employees bustled through marble lobbies, unaware of the storm brewing at the top. Isaac stepped into his corner office, the floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the skyline. Dylan was already there, organizing files with efficient movements that hid the tension in his shoulders. They waited until the door clicked shut before speaking. "Last night wasn't fair," Isaac started, crossing the room. Dylan turned, his expression guarded. "Fair? None of this is fair, Isaac. You've spent years building this empire while I watched from the shadows. Now your father's ghost is asking you to erase me completely." Isaac reached for his hand, but Dylan stepped back. "Not here. Not where someone could walk in." The rejection stung, but Isaac understood. Their love had always existed in fragments. Stolen moments in hotel rooms during business trips, quiet dinners in Brooklyn brownstones far from prying eyes. The board meeting dragged on, executives debating quarterly projections while Isaac's mind raced. He proposed a delay tactic, suggesting they explore legal challenges to the will. "My father was under medical stress when he amended it," he argued, keeping his voice steady. The room murmured in agreement, but Marcus, who had joined via video from the estate, shot it down. "The clause is bulletproof. Dad made sure. You marry Sophia or we all pay." After the meeting, Isaac and Dylan retreated to a private conference room. "I can't pretend anymore," Dylan said, pacing the length of the table. "Every time I see you with her, it's like watching you choose them over us." Isaac leaned against the wall, the city humming 30 floors below. "I'm not choosing them. I'm trying to protect what we built together. This company isn't just mine. It's our future too." Dylan stopped, his eyes searching Isaac's. "Is it? Or is it just another cage?" That evening, they drove to Dylan's small apartment in Chelsea, a space filled with photographs he had taken on their rare escapes. Images of sunsets over the Rockies, city streets in Paris during a disguised vacation. Isaac sank onto the couch, the weight of the day crashing down. "Remember when we first said I love you?" he asked softly. Dylan sat beside him, the distance between them feeling smaller now. "On that hike in Vermont. You were terrified someone would overhear, but you said it anyway." The memory brought a faint smile. They talked late into the night, mapping out options. private investigators for loopholes, conversations with sympathetic board members, even the possibility of coming out publicly. But each path led to the same risk: financial ruin for the company Isaac had poured his life into. Dylan listened without judgment, his presence a steady anchor. "Whatever you decide, I need to know it's for us, not just the name on the building," he said finally. Isaac pulled him close, the embrace a reminder of everything worth fighting for. The following days blurred into strategy sessions and family calls. Eleanor pushed for a dinner with Sophia's parents, while Marcus leaked hints to the press about an impending engagement. Isaac dodged questions at work, his assistant fielding inquiries with practiced ease. Inside, the conflict grew. He caught himself staring at Dylan during meetings, memorizing the way his brow furrowed in concentration, the subtle smile reserved only for him. One afternoon, alone in the elevator, Dylan pressed the stop button and turned to Isaac. "Tell me you won't go through with it." Isaac hesitated, the words caught in his throat. "I don't want to. But if I don't, what happens to the people who depend on us?" The elevator resumed its descent, and the moment passed, but the question lingered like smoke. By the end of the week, Isaac had scheduled a meeting with the family attorney. Mr. Ellison arrived with more documents, explaining the charity clause in detail. "Your father anticipated resistance," he said gently. "He believed this would force you to prioritize legacy over personal desires." Isaac left the meeting numb, wandering the streets of Midtown until he found himself at the edge of Central Park. The autumn leaves crunched underfoot as he called Dylan. "Meet me at our bench." They sat side by side, watching joggers and families, the normalcy a stark contrast to their hidden world. "I'm scared," Isaac admitted for the first time. "Scared of losing everything, including you." Dylan took his hand briefly, hidden by the park's shadows. "Then let's fight together. No more hiding from each other." The conversation stretched into plans, small steps toward resistance. Isaac felt a spark of hope, the first since the will reading. But back at the office, a new email waited. An invitation to Sophia's family estate for the weekend. The pressure was mounting, and Isaac knew the coming days would test every boundary he had built. The weekend at the Langford estate unfolded like a carefully scripted play, complete with manicured gardens and servants anticipating every need. Isaac arrived alone, Dylan staying behind in the city under the guise of handling urgent reports. Sophia greeted him with genuine warmth, her parents beaming as they discussed merger details over cocktails on the veranda. "Your father was a visionary, Mr. Langford said, raising his glass. "This union honors that." Isaac smiled through the ache, nodding at stories of their shared business history. Inside, he replayed Dylan's last words from the park bench, clinging to them like a lifeline. The estate's opulence mirrored his own family's, but it felt foreign, a reminder that this life was not the one he had chosen. Saturday morning brought a private walk with Sophia along the winding paths. She spoke of her dreams for the company, her desire to expand charitable programs. "I know this arrangement is sudden," she said softly, "but I believe we could build something real." Her kindness only deepened Isaac's guilt. He thought of Dylan, probably reviewing contracts alone in the office, and wondered how much longer he could balance the two worlds. Back in the city, Dylan called during a break. "How's it going?" The question carried layers. Isaac stepped into a quiet hallway. "It's like wearing a mask that fits too tight. I keep thinking about us, about what we could have if things were different." Dylan's voice softened. "They can be different. We just need to make the first move." The conversation ended abruptly when Eleanor arrived for lunch, her arrival a surprise orchestrated by Marcus. She pulled Isaac aside in the library. "Sophia is perfect for you. Don't let old doubts cloud your judgment." Isaac bristled. "What doubts?" Eleanor sighed, her eyes sharp. "Your father suspected something. He never said it outright, but he worried you were too close to that assistant of yours." The words landed like stones. Isaac kept his face neutral, but inside the fear spiked. Had his father known? The will suddenly felt even more personal, a final attempt to control from beyond the grave. That evening, over dinner, Marcus arrived unannounced, his presence shifting the mood. "Heard you're dragging your feet," he muttered during a private moment on the terrace. "Don't blow this for all of us." Isaac confronted him. "This isn't your decision." Marcus laughed coldly. "It is when my inheritance is on the line." "Come out with it, Isaac. What's really holding you back?" The accusation hung heavy, forcing Isaac to deflect with talk of due diligence. Back in his guest room that night, he stared at the ceiling, the silence amplifying his thoughts. He texted Dylan, "Miss you. Need to see you." The reply came quickly, "Doors open whenever you're ready to walk through it." The simple message gave him strength. Sunday morning, Isaac made his excuses and drove back early, arriving at Dylan's apartment before noon. They spent the day talking strategy, poring over legal opinions Dylan had gathered from discreet contacts. "There's a chance if we prove undue influence or mental incapacity," Dylan explained, spreading papers across the coffee table. Isaac listened, his respect for Dylan's quiet intelligence deepening. They had always complemented each other. Isaac the bold leader, Dylan the thoughtful anchor. As afternoon faded, tension eased into closeness. They cooked a simple meal together, the domesticity a brief escape. "Remember our first trip to Maine?" Dylan asked, stirring sauce. Isaac smiled. "The cabin with no signal. Best week of my life." The memory sparked laughter, a reminder of resilience. But reality intruded with a call from the board. Stock prices were dipping on rumors of internal discord. Isaac took the call, his voice steady as he reassured investors. Afterward, Dylan wrapped his arms around him from behind. "You're carrying too much alone." Isaac turned, resting his forehead against Dylan's. "Not anymore. We're in this together." The weekend's events had clarified one thing. Hiding had protected the company but eroded his soul. He resolved to meet the board Monday with a proposal to challenge the clause subtly. Monday brought fresh challenges. The boardroom crackled with anticipation as Isaac presented his case for legal review. Marcus attended in person, his skepticism evident. "This is stalling," he accused after the meeting. Isaac stood firm. "This is protecting our legacy properly." In the hallway afterward, Dylan waited with coffee, his presence a silent show of support. "You handled that well," he said quietly. Isaac nodded, but the victory felt hollow. That evening, Sophia called unexpectedly. "I sense hesitation. If there's someone else, I deserve to know." Isaac froze, the question piercing. He deflected gently, promising honesty soon. Hanging up, he felt the walls closing faster. The week progressed with mounting pressure. Family dinners turned interrogative, board members probed for details, and media speculation grew. Isaac and Dylan stole moments in the office after hours, reviewing documents and sharing quiet affirmations. One night, as rain lashed the windows, Dylan voiced his deepest fear. "If you choose the marriage, I won't stand in your way. But I can't watch from the sidelines forever." Isaac took his hands. "I won't ask you to. We're finding another way." The promise felt fragile, but it held them through the storm. By Friday, Isaac had lined up a specialist lawyer known for contested estates. The meeting was set for the following week, a small step toward reclaiming control. Yet as he left the office, a text from Marcus arrived. Dad left more than one surprise. "Check your email." The attachment was a scanned letter from Reginald, addressed to Isaac alone, detailing his suspicions and final plea for tradition. The words blurred as Isaac read them in the parking garage, the betrayal from beyond the grave hitting harder than expected. Dylan found him there, pulling him into a brief embrace. "Whatever it says, we face it together." The support steadied Isaac, but the letter ignited a new resolve. The family empire was crumbling under its own weight, and Isaac was ready to let parts of it fall if it meant saving himself and the man he loved. The specialist lawyer's office overlooked the Brooklyn Bridge, a neutral ground far from the family's influence. Isaac sat across from the seasoned attorney, Dylan beside him as moral support disguised as a colleague. The letter from Reginald lay open on the desk, its handwritten lines a testament to his father's final manipulations. "I suspected your inclinations years ago," it read. "This clause ensures the Harrington name endures as it should." The lawyer leaned back, adjusting his glasses. "It's emotional blackmail, but legally sound. However, we can argue emotional duress given his health decline." Hope flickered in Isaac's chest for the first time in weeks. Dylan squeezed his knee under the table, a hidden gesture that spoke volumes. They left the meeting with a plan. Gather affidavits from doctors about Reginald's condition, interview board members discreetly, and prepare a petition to contest. Back at the penthouse, Isaac and Dylan cooked dinner together, the routine grounding them amid chaos. "This could work," Isaac said, chopping vegetables. Dylan smiled across the island. "It will, because we're fighting for the right reasons." Their conversation turned to the future they dared imagine. Public dates, shared vacations without fear, perhaps even a home outside the city's glare. The vision sustained Isaac through the next days of covert meetings and late-night research. But cracks appeared at home. Eleanor visited the penthouse unannounced, her concern laced with suspicion. "People are talking, Isaac. About delays, about your closeness with Dylan." He deflected, but the seed of doubt planted deeper. Marcus escalated by scheduling a family intervention at the estate, demanding Isaac's presence. The drive up felt endless, Dylan's texts providing steady encouragement. At the gathering, the room felt smaller than before. "Sign the engagement papers," Marcus demanded. "Or explain why you're stalling." Isaac stood tall. "Because I won't be dictated to from the grave." The admission hung heavy, prompting gasps. Eleanor paled. "What are you saying?" Isaac met her eyes. "I'm saying the clause ignores who I really am." He stopped short of full confession, but the implication rippled through the family. Dylan waited in the city, anxious for updates. When Isaac returned late that night, he recounted the confrontation. It felt like the first honest moment in years. Dylan listened, then shared his own news. A tip from a sympathetic cousin about another hidden clause in the will, one tying personal assets to compliance. The revelation fueled their determination. They spent the weekend poring over documents, ordering takeout and stealing kisses between pages. "You're changing," Dylan observed one evening. "The old Isaac would have signed to keep peace." Isaac nodded. "The old Isaac didn't have you reminding me what's worth keeping." Monday brought the specialist's update. Strong grounds for contest, but it would take months and risk public exposure. Isaac weighed the cost. Exposure meant headlines, board upheaval, possible stock drops. Yet hiding had cost him more. He scheduled a private lunch with Sophia, choosing a quiet cafe away from prying eyes. "I respect you too much to pretend," he said gently. "There's someone else. Someone important." Sophia absorbed the news with grace, her eyes sad but understanding. "I suspected. Thank you for telling me." The conversation ended amicably, lifting a weight from Isaac's shoulders. He texted Dylan immediately, "One step closer." The family reaction was swift. Eleanor called in tears, Marcus in fury. "You've ruined everything." Isaac held firm, the growth evident in his steady voice. At the office, rumors swirled, but Dylan stood by him, handling logistics with quiet strength. One afternoon, they escaped to a rooftop garden Dylan had photographed years ago. "Remember when we came here on our first anniversary?" Dylan asked. Isaac smiled. "I was terrified of being seen." Now, with the skyline around them, the fear felt distant. They talked of coming out strategically, starting with close allies. The conversation shifted to sacrifices. Isaac might lose majority control but gain freedom. Dylan offered to step back professionally if needed. "Your happiness matters more than my title," he said. Isaac pulled him close. "Our happiness." As weeks passed, the legal battle intensified. Affidavits arrived, doctors confirming Reginald's declining capacity. Board meetings turned tense, allies emerging unexpectedly. Marcus attempted a power play, rallying shareholders, but Isaac countered with data proving his leadership. Through it all, Dylan remained the constant, his patience a bomb. One night after a grueling hearing, Isaac collapsed on the couch. "I almost gave in last month." Dylan sat beside him. "But you didn't. That's the man I love." The words healed old wounds. The family empire trembled, divisions deepening. But Isaac felt himself emerging stronger, the identity crisis resolving into clarity. He was no longer the son hiding. He was the man choosing his own path. The Will's night had been the catalyst, and now the pieces were reassembling into something authentic. The courtroom buzzed with subdued energy as the judge reviewed the petition. Isaac sat at the plaintiff's table, Dylan in the gallery offering silent support with every glance. Months of preparation had led here, medical records, witness statements, financial analyses proving the clause's undue burden. Marcus and Eleanor watched from the other side, their expressions a mix of betrayal and resignation. The lawyer presented the case methodically, highlighting Reginald's health issues and the clause's discriminatory intent. Isaac testified calmly, his voice steady as he described the pressure's toll. "It wasn't just about business. It was about erasing a part of me." The words echoed, marking his first public acknowledgement. After the session, Dylan met him outside, the autumn air crisp. "You were incredible." They walked to a nearby park, hands brushing occasionally in the crowd. The hearing had drained them, but also bonded them deeper. Back at the penthouse, they reviewed notes, planning the next phase. Family calls flooded in, cousins offering tentative support, old friends reaching out after leaks. The secret was cracking open, and surprisingly, the world hadn't ended. Stock dipped slightly but stabilized as investors valued Isaac's transparency. Marcus confronted him privately at the estate one weekend. "You could have kept it quiet." Isaac shook his head. "Quiet almost destroyed me." The brothers talked for hours, Marcus's anger softening into reluctant understanding. Eleanor struggled more, but a quiet dinner revealed her love beneath the shock. "I just wanted you safe," she admitted. Isaac hugged her. "I am safe now." Dylan's role evolved publicly. He transitioned from assistant to strategic advisor, their relationship acknowledged subtly at first. Colleagues offered support, the corporate culture shifting with the times. One board meeting, Isaac addressed the room directly. "My personal life doesn't diminish my leadership. It strengthens it." Applause followed, a turning point. Privately, he and Dylan celebrated small victories. A weekend getaway without disguises, introducing each other as partners to close friends. The emotional growth was profound. Isaac no longer carried the weight alone. Decisions felt shared, burdens lighter. Yet challenges persisted. A rival shareholder sued over the contested assets, prolonging uncertainty. Family fractures lingered, with some relatives distancing themselves. Isaac faced internal doubt during quiet nights. "Did I destroy what Dad built?" Dylan reassured him. "You rebuilt it better." Their bond deepened through honest talks about fears and dreams. Dylan shared his own journey of patience, the sacrifices of secrecy. "I never regretted loving you." The confession moved Isaac to tears. Together, they volunteered at LGBTQ centers, Isaac speaking anonymously at first, then openly. The awakening extended beyond personal. He advocated for inclusive policies at the company, mentoring young executives facing similar struggles. The court date for final arguments approached. Preparation intensified, with Dylan helping craft statements. Family tensions peaked when Marcus proposed a settlement. partial control in exchange for dropping the case. Isaac considered it during a long walk with Dylan along the river. It could end the fighting. Dylan listened thoughtfully. But would it honor who you are now? The question guided the decision. They declined, choosing full resolution. The night before court, they sat on the balcony overlooking the city. Whatever happens tomorrow, we've already won, Isaac said. Dylan smiled. Because we're together openly. Court unfolded with intensity. The judge ruled in their favor on key points, citing modern standards and evidence of coercion. Partial victory meant the clause was voided, assets secured under revised terms. Cheers erupted outside. Marcus approached afterward, extending a hand. You fought fair. Dad would be proud in his way. Eleanor hugged Isaac tightly. I'm learning. The family began healing, slow but genuine. Isaac returned to the office transformed, the chairman who led with authenticity. Dylan joined him for a press conference, their relationship public at last. Headlines celebrated the story of resilience. In the following weeks, life settled into new rhythms. Isaac restructured the company for inclusivity, Dylan launching a photography initiative tied to the firm. Their love, once hidden, became a source of strength. Family gatherings included Dylan naturally, conversations evolving beyond legacy to acceptance. Isaac reflected on the journey, from the Will's shock to this place of peace. The internal crisis had forged a better man, one unafraid of his truth. Yet echoes remained, reminders of growth's cost. One evening, watching the sunset with Dylan, Isaac felt complete. The empire had not collapsed entirely. It had evolved, much like him. The boardroom overlooked a transformed skyline, symbols of progress mirroring Isaac's own. Months after the ruling, Harrington Enterprises thrived under new policies, diversity initiatives boosting morale and profits. Isaac stood at the head of the table, Dylan seated beside him as equal partner in both life and select ventures. The family had adapted, Eleanor hosting gatherings where Dylan was welcomed warmly. Marcus even collaborated on projects, his respect earned through hard conversations. Sophia had moved on gracefully, her friendship a surprising bonus. Isaac's journey culminated in quiet moments of reflection. He visited his father's grave alone one crisp morning, laying flowers and speaking truths long withheld. I honored you by being true to myself. The wind seemed to carry acceptance. Back home, Dylan prepared breakfast, their shared apartment a sanctuary of photos and plans for the future. Ready for the charity gala? Dylan asked. Isaac nodded, the event marking their first public appearance as a couple. The evening sparkled with lights and conversations, Isaac addressing the crowd on identity and leadership. Applause thundered, the standing ovation affirming his choices. Yet growth was ongoing. Isaac mentored others, sharing his story in workshops. Dylan captured it through lenses, their partnership a testament to endurance. Family bonds strengthened through shared meals and honest talks. The empire stood solid, not as a cage but a platform for change. One weekend at the estate, the entire family gathered, laughter filling rooms once tense. Isaac pulled Dylan aside on the terrace, the same spot where doubt had once reigned. Thank you for waiting, Dylan smiled. Thank you for choosing us. As seasons changed, Isaac looked back on the Will's night as the catalyst for awakening. The misunderstandings, betrayals, and sacrifices had forged unbreakable resilience. He and Dylan traveled more, exploring places once dreamed of. Corporate success intertwined with personal fulfillment, a balance hard won. Friends noted the change. Isaac's confidence radiated, free from shadows. The company launched programs supporting LGBTQ youth, extending the legacy in ways Reginald could never have imagined. In a final board decision, Isaac proposed renaming a foundation after inclusive values. Approval was unanimous. Dylan squeezed his hand under the table, pride evident. Life flowed with purpose now. Evenings involved quiet dinners, mornings shared runs in the park. The pressure of prejudice had lifted, replaced by community and love. Isaac's internal conflicts resolved into clarity. Duty and desire could coexist when authenticity led. The family empire endured, stronger for its evolution. One evening on their balcony, watching city lights, Isaac turned to Dylan. "We made it." Dylan leaned in. "And we'll keep making it." Their story, born from shock, had become one of triumph. The choices had consequences, but each step forward proved worth it. As the years stretched ahead, Isaac knew the path was theirs to shape. True or false? Choosing love over family legacy always leads to collapse.